Welcome back to another episode of Being Intentional. I'm your host, LaFrederick Burns, and this is going to be my fourth episode of my podcast, but this is part 3 of my personal experience with battling suicide. So as I stated in 2 previous episodes, September is known as National Suicide Prevention Month, and I am sharing my story on what happened when I attempted suicide on April 17th, 2007. So I encourage you to go back and listen to the previous episodes to see what had happened up until this point. But right now I'm talking about my experience in the mental health ward. So 9 o'clock goes past and my doctor still hasn't come. So I go up to the nurse's station and ask them what's going on. And so they look in the records and it was like, oh no, your doctor doesn't get here until 1 o'clock. And I'm like, what? It's like, yeah, your doctor doesn't come in until 1 o'clock. I was like, that's not what I was told. I was told that my doctor, I would meet with a doctor at 9 a.m. and I could go home after meeting with that doctor. They said, no, you're not going home. You're on a 72-hour hold. What? I'm on a 72 what? No. Wind that back. I'm not staying here 72 hours. That's the attitude I took, because I'm like, no, this is not happening. I'm not staying here 72 hours. I was told I just need to meet with a doctor and then I can go home. That's what I expect. That's what's going to happen. Of course, they wasn't having it, but this is where I began to have an anxiety attack, and this was a huge lesson for me in not allowing your emotions to control your behavior. Anybody that knows my history knows that I've been a hothead the majority of my life. So when she told me I had a 72-hour hold, in normal situations, this is probably where I would have probably pulled the Jesus move and flipped the table. But instead, to not make matters worse for myself, because I'm already feeling like I'm in jail, I took a deep breath, took a step back, and by this point, I'm crying. I'm crying hard, and I can barely breathe. And I'm trying to explain to them how what they said at intake and what they're telling me now don't align, and how that makes me feel. And I'm having a complete meltdown, but I'm not acting irrational. And in the process, one of the in-house therapists that runs the group sessions, she comes out and she sees what's going on. And at this point, she asked me if I was willing to talk to her to, help calm down and get a better understanding of the process or whatever. So she takes me into the group therapy room, because by this point group therapy is over, and which also doubled as their TV room. And it's just me and her in the room, and she's talking to me. She asked, I explained to her what I was told in intake and how that's making me feel, and how important it is that I had to leave there that day. And the reason I had to leave there that day was because I was the only one working in my household. And if I didn't get up, if I wasn't out in time to make it to work the next day, then everything that I had going, what little income I had coming in, and what I did have going for myself, it was all going to crumble. I was going to lose my car. I was going to lose my apartment. I was pretty much supporting everything. So by them holding me for 72 hours, even though it was because of something that I did to myself, I felt like it was uncalled for, and how them lying to me only made things worse. So, she listened to everything I said, and in the end, I calmed down, and she told me that, just wait to see what the doctor has to say. And I truly believe, looking back, I truly believe that she heard everything that I said, and she went to that doctor and advocated for me. And that made the outcome of things a lot better. So fast forward, around 1 o'clock rolls around, and the doctor gets there, and he calls me into the room, same room that we did intake in. We sit, we meet, we talk. I explained everything that happened, everything I was going through, everything that led up to me attempting my life. So we go on to talk about coping mechanisms and what kind of support systems I had in place that could help me get through what I was going through. And before, I think we were supposed to meet for about an hour, but after about a good 30 minutes, he had a full understanding of the picture of what I was going through at that time. And he quickly made a decision that, you're right, you don't belong here. This is not the setting for you. You have other coping mechanisms. I'm going to encourage you to follow through on those. And I'm going to let you go home. So you talking about somebody that was overjoyed. So I quickly, went back to my room and settled in and called my, they don't let you have a phone in your room, but there was a public phone in the dining hall. So I go back to that phone and I call my wife and let her know that I'm being released and she needs to come pick me up from the hospital. I tell her which hospital it's at and pretty much how to get there. And I'm like expecting her to be on her way. But then I called my mom and my sisters and let them know that I was being released. And they asked me what hospital I was at. I told them that my wife was coming to pick me up. They was like, oh, okay. So I go back and I'm sitting there watching TV in the TV room. This is when I learned about the show Deadliest Catch and became a fan of it. I can't even tell you what really drove me to watch the show, other than the fact that it was on when I went into the TV room and I didn't want to sit in that quote unquote jail cell anymore. And while I'm sitting there, they paged me over the intercom. And so I go up front. There's like, your family's here. So I'm thinking it's my wife there to pick me up. And I turn around and look. My mom, my sister, and my sister's husband at the time are outside the door waiting for me to come out. And I'm like blown away because I never expected those three people to be the ones to come pick me up. And so they give me all my personal stuff. And I go out there. And before I can even get through the door good, my older sister grabs me by the neck and hugs me for dear life. And anybody that knows my relationship with my older sister, you will understand that when she did that, it was so unexpected, but at the same time, at that particular moment, it was so needed. We both just pretty much stood there and cried. And of course, my mom hugged me and cried and everything too. And then my brother-in-law dapped me up, and we went on outside. And at this point, I still don't know where my wife is, or if she's on her way, or what happened. And so we go on outside. It was like, well, since she's not here, we'll take you home. Just call her and tell her to meet you back at the house. By the time we get downstairs, she's pulling up. So she pulls up. I jump in the car with her, and we all go home. At this point, I find out that my wife did something I asked her not to do. I explained to her that the gasoline that was in the car pretty much had to last us until I got paid again, and I still had like several days of work. And for her, the local ER that they took me to was right around the corner from her mom's house. So she went over there after they released me from the ER and transferred me to the mental health ward. And when she and I talked on the phone that morning, I explained to her again that was all the gas that we had and it had to last. And I asked her not to be running around the city in my car, knowing that neither one of us had any more money to put gas in the tank for me to get back to work. So I find out when she picked me up that she ran around the city anyway. We lived on the complete opposite side of town from where the mental health ward was, and it was at least a 30-minute drive. It was already 20 minutes from our house to her mom's house, and it was probably like another 20 minutes from her mom's house to where they had me at that day. So when I get in the car and I find this out, I was just livid at that point, because I'm like, why I'm in the hospital, and yet you're still causing me more issues. But anyway, we get past that. we go ahead and go home. And as we get home, I get a phone call from my brother-in-law, and he's like, "Where you at?" And I'm like, "I'm at home." I'm like, "I just left you guys, and I told you I was going home. I haven't slept since I got up yesterday morning, so I'm going home, go to bed." So he was like, "Well, your mom wants to see you. Can we come by?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, no problem." So at this point, I'm laying on the couch. They get there. They all come upstairs to the apartment, whatever. And it was a really weird feeling because after that whole incident at the church, things were very strained between me and my mother, which I can talk about in another episode because that's a great point of being intentional about relationships. But you could feel the tension in the room. And I don't know what my ex-wife did to my mother that day or said to my mother, or if she even said anything. But my mother, everything was so weird that my mother pretty much came in and left right back out. She was there probably maybe 5-10 minutes. And yeah, so it was like really weird. Even to this day, I don't understand what was the driving force behind the energy in the room that day. But yeah, this has been another episode of Being Intentional. Again, the platform I'm using only allows 16 minutes. I'm coming up on the end of my time. So I'm going to go ahead and close out this particular episode. Don't forget to follow me on all my social media, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. My handle is creativelyme_. And on Snapchat is LaFreddyB. Until next time, you guys be blessed.